This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
A holiday vacation edition of the Detroit Sports Podcast. I am the Doc, live in Sterling Heights, Michigan, recording the Doc and Jock podcast with my cousin, Adam the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz?
This one's a little bit different. The last time we did kind of like an impromptu pushback podcast isn't out right at like 6 a.m. type deal on a Thursday was when I had my hernia surgery. I think the bigger question is, how are you? How are things? Death in the family. So are you okay? Is everything good? Is the family okay? A little bit of an emotional time, not just in sports, and we're going to get to all that, but a little bit of emotions with the family there.
Yeah, no, we had a family member pass, but he was 95 years old, so he lived a great full life, spent Wednesday at the funeral, remembering, the charitable work that Fred Maloof was able to accomplish in the city of St. Clair Shores. He lived there, and he was a very charitable man, and it was emotional, yes, for my mom, because she's had a couple family members pass within, recent memory, relatively close in time, but overall, for me, it was, something where someone lives 95 years old and his birthday would have come up in February. He lived a great life. It was festive. We talked, we laughed, and we got just a chance to spend time together as a family and talk and conversate and relive his life. So Wednesday was a little bit of an emotional time, but for me overall, I'm on vacation from the practice, from everything, and I just, before we came in today, I was just telling myself, man, I like vacation. It's nice just to kind of wing it for a while, just kind of wake up whenever you want, nothing to do, and just enjoy the time that you have with the kids, the family. But it's Thursday now. I definitely look forward to talking to you. And I was thinking the same thing. I was like, dang, we had not recorded a podcast on a Wednesday in such a long time that it's a little bit different here recording it. We're going to put this right out. Very little touch up to this. It's just, hey, no computers, just drinks, Doritos, corn nuts, festive time. And so I wanted to get into what we did on our Christmas Eve because I noticed that you had yourself a good old time.
I did have a good time.
You were throwing them back, and I think I overheard you say that you were throwing them down whiskey style?
Whatever that I don't...
Spirit juice?
Was, yeah.
Spirit juice?
Well, okay, so let's start at the beginning here, okay? Because when I came to see you, I was already half in the bag.
Oh, okay.
So by the time I got to you, I was real good and lubricated.
Where'd you pregame at?
At my dad's house. I had a buddy show up. He bought a bottle of whiskey, bought a thing of Bullet Rye, and I was drinking those on the rocks. I had about 4 of them. They were very good, and they made me feel very good. And then I showed up, and next thing you know, I was cracking a beer with my old man and my uncle Brian there, your father-in-law. And next thing I know, we're all doing this weird red Polish liquor that's like 180 proof. I have no idea what it was, what it is. All I know is it tasted really good. And I ended up drinking one of those. Next thing I know, I'm upstairs, sitting with a mutual friend of ours, and me and her were sitting there rapping. Next thing I know, I'm like, well, I want more. You want more? And she was like, sure. Next thing I know, dude, we're going halves on this bottle, and she's sucking down the last of it out of the bottle. So it was a good time.
Yeah, I think the mother-in-law called it spirit juice, and how it hit me was it went down real smooth. It was real good. All of a sudden, maybe 60 seconds later, you start to feel it in your head like, oh, hello, this feels good. So I only did one, but it was very nice. And
it was
I would say
Polish moonshine or something. I have no idea. It was amazing. So
it was
real
amazing,
good stuff.
and that has to be part of the tradition. And maybe next year we'll graduate. I'll graduate to do 2 of them because the first one got me. And like I said, I hadn't eaten too much. So at that point, after the first one, my head got a little bit twisted there. It was cool.
I did like 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, I wanted to say
you're lucky I had pants on by the end of it all.
Having football on in the background made the day great as well.
Oh, so much more enjoyable, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was fun. We got a chance to wrap sports. Very tough day too in terms of what happened that day in football with Derek Carr and Mariota having the same kind of injury, ending their season, wrecking 2 football teams. And I was telling Andria, I was like, man, I really had a good time. We rapped, we talked football, we watched, what was going on in the day's events. The kids were all festive, having a good old time. It was a great Christmas Eve, great Christmas time, and like I said, it was a great way to start a vacation. Where my last day was Saturday at noon, and just went right to the Christmas Eve party, and here I am now on Thursday, having a good old time. Not going back, not seeing another client probably until Tuesday. Just gonna enjoy the ride fully from Christmas Eve, Christmas, New Year's Eve, New Year's. I think that's the way I'm probably, if I'm fortunate enough to make a schedule, just do it like that. Work all year, take one vacation, make it a good 9-dayer, and that works for me, man. I'm loving it.
When you say you're on vacation, you basically showed up to the studio in your pajama bottoms and your shirt. You look like you just rolled out of bed like, you know what, I brushed my teeth. I don't have any hair to comb, so let's just go. And then you basically showed up here, and now you're like, let's just cut it up, let's do it. And I'm like, all right, man, let's do it.
Yeah, man, like I said, when we said last week we were going to do a festive one, we got the Tito's, we got the cranberry, the lemonade, the Doritos, the corn nuts. Anything else you would need, I would have brought it, but so far to record a podcast, I think that's all.
It's like your work Christmas party.
Yeah, that's right. And a little later, Vito will join us when his executive ass will show up here. Guy rolls on Arabic time, dude. I never noticed. I give him a 12 o'clock time, or as they say, shooting time at 12 o'clock,
Yep.
And it's now 12:20, and he's like, start without me.
Yeah.
Busy.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Vito. How was your Christmas day? I know that you spend it with your mom, and you and the crew all dress up in your jammies and have a good old time.
You've seen all those pictures, huh?
Nice. I like them. Every year, though.
My
That's
mom,
cool.
Yeah, my mom always puts those on the book, and she likes to keep everybody informed of what we're doing, which is kind of annoying, but it's whatever. I ended up going over to my mom's house after I left you, spend the night there. We get our Christmas jammies. We get to open a couple of gifts beforehand. And then we go to bed, wake up, and we do the whole thing basically all over again. So it was good. I got a lot of cool stuff, man. Like, if you need something built, let me know. I got so many different saws for so many different things. It's ridiculous. Every time I turned around, I was getting a new tool. I don't know if this was like the year of tools for me. Weird. So I got some hockey equipment too, which was nice because I needed some of that. And just a lot of just different little things. Like, I didn't get that one massive gift this year. Every year you sometimes get that one big gift that you've been waiting for and you wanted forever. I didn't have anything like that this year. I told everybody, like, I don't want anything. I just hey, let's go have a good time and let's just celebrate and live life. Like, there's not one thing I really wanted. And I didn't need anything. And next thing you know, everybody bought me all kinds of crazy stuff. So it was cool, man. It was nice. I had a real good time. My wife had a good time. Sister had a good time. Mom, I don't know if you've seen the one video of my mom after a drink or two on Facebook. She was feeling herself. So she had a good time. My stepdad had a good time. So it was a good time.
No, that's what it's all about, and it was a blessing. Monday was a great day, 50 degrees. The weather has kind of warmed up, cooled down, warmed up, so we're getting that Michigan weather right now, but it was nice to see the sun out on Wednesday, and it's just, one of those things where it's the end of the year, we reflect a little bit. So before we get into the nervousness that we're all feeling, I think that's why we got the spirits here to try to calm our nerves down, because we all know what's coming Sunday, and it could be potentially relieved before the Lions even kick off. So we'll talk all about that. But overall, reflecting on your 2016, good year, bad year, how would you reflect on the year that was, as this is our final podcast recording of 2016?
I would say adequate year. Some good, some bad. I can say professionally, I'm not necessarily where I want to be or where I had expected to be at this point. But good things come to those who wait. So we're still waiting for some good things. And 2017 hopefully will be better. And that's all you can do, man. It's like Lego blocks. You just got to keep building. So how about you?
Yeah, I would assess it the same way. I mean, I'm never really satisfied per se. You always try to do things bigger and better. But, with the podcast, everything's going according to plan. We're trekking up the mountain inch by inch, putting a new spoke in the mountain piece by piece. And I'm liking where that's at. The practice is going okay. The, real estate stuff is going okay. Keeps you busy, keeps your mind sharp. So for me, the way I look at it is, now, sitting around your mid to late 30s, you go, okay, I kind of got the thing started off the ground. Now I want to take them into full flight, take them up to 30,000 feet. Because right now they're kind of basically all at takeoff. And I like that, but now they're ready to kind of be put into full throttle and take it off and see where it can go with everything that I'm working on. And that's what I'm going to do. The biggest thing that you learn when you go to a funeral is you see how someone put their life together and what they wanted to do and what kind of success they had. and you go, okay, what do you got to do? What are the leaks? What are the things that you can get better at as a person? I could say probably use your time a little bit more wisely, a little bit less time wasting maybe on social media and stuff like that, and more focused stuff that will get me to where I need to go. And then just be willing to put yourself out there a little bit more. We did marketing for everything that I'm involved in, but lightly, I would say. Now we got kind of the idea of where to focus the attention on certain things, and that's what I'm going to do. Focus my attention on great marketing and really take everything that we're doing to the next level. So I was happy with the year, happy, healthy, and that's all you can ask for is that everybody that I care about is okay, and we're just going to take 2017 to a great level, and hopefully, and for me, New Year's Eve, quiet. That's what I'm going to like. Just go spend time with family, have a couple cocktails, relax. I'm not, at this point in time in my life, one of those people that has to have, an extravagant night out, put on a suit, and get tore up on the town. I did that, went to Michigan State. I really got that all out of my system, so everything that I do festive-wise is kind of like, gravy. The way I would put it is that, when you go to Michigan State and you spend 4 years there and you really can experience some things there, there's not much that's really going to top it too much. It's just adding to it. So I'm not going to go out and, tear it up on the night. I'm just going to have a couple cocktails with the family, relax, and maybe catch up a little bit on some college football. The playoff will go on that night and shoot the breeze a little bit and probably definitely talk to the crew about what they're thinking about the Lions. So low-key, subdued New Year's for me is what I like.
I'm the same way, man. Just it's the 29th now. I don't even know what I'm doing yet. Probably going to end up staying home, just kind of taking a real chill, relaxed day. Maybe watch some movies with the wife, checking on the football games. That's about it. I'm lucky enough to where the one game I care about, that's the Orange Bowl, and we're going to discuss that a little bit later on in this podcast. I get that on Friday afternoon. I get that Friday night, actually. So I get to have my fun, go watch that, have a good old time, and then when New Year's Eve rolls around, I got nothing to worry about. I got nothing to do. I don't have to worry about anything because I don't care if Ohio State wins or loses. I want them to get blown out, but whatever, doesn't make or break my day. I don't care what happens with Alabama and Washington. It's whatever. So I just don't care. I'm not emotionally invested in any of those schools that are in the playoff right now.
Really? You don't really care too much about it?
No, I mean, I want to see a good game. Prefer to see a good game, but I'm not emotionally invested. I'm emotionally invested in what's going to take place Friday in the Orange Bowl. I want Michigan to win. I need Michigan to win. And I've got certain reasons for it, and we'll kind of cover those and tackle those. But that's the game I'm building my weekend around, is what takes place Friday night.
Yeah, and stay tuned later in the podcast because I might ask a question that might set off everybody else that's present in this room because I watched Mike and Mike earlier today. Paul Feinbaum came on there, was a guest. They had two filling guys. Stu Gatz and Mike Golick's son were hosting Mike and Mike, and they had a plethora of guests. A great show. It was very entertaining, talking about the news and notes nationally. And Paul Feinbaum came on, noted SEC slap, and he came on and he did some Michigan trolling. A little bit different than in the past because this one was right to the point and led me to think of something that I just have to ask you, and we'll talk about it in the second half of this podcast. When we come back, we'll take our first time out, regroup here, probably have our first spirits of the day, and come back, have a chat about the Detroit Lions because I think we're all potentially at this point in time starting to feel the nerves regarding the Detroit Lions. So we'll take a quick break, regroup, get the Doritos, the corn nuts, the food in our system, and we'll come back and we'll let it rip and talk about the Detroit Lions. So stay with us. Doc and Jock, episode 177. I want to tell you about our newest sponsor, Team Top Cat Sales. Are you looking for team apparel for your high school, your club sports team, or corporation? Look no further than Top Cat Sales, located on the east side of Main Street in downtown Royal Oak, between 11 and 12 Mile. Through founder and former University of Michigan QB John Wangler's leadership, Top Cat Sales has developed a tradition of selling and distributing custom Adidas team apparel with the highest quality and best service. Get your organization, school, or club team all in with Adidas today by going to topcatteamsales.com. That's topcatteamsales.com. Also, follow Top Cat on Twitter at Team Top Cat. apropos, as we got NXT in the background, just seeing a flashback, man, to Jiri. My goodness, I haven't seen him wrestle in so long. He's tagging up with his compadre versus looks like some cruiserweights there, so very neat.
Yeah, he looks old. We're just gonna leave it at that.
Those are the NXT tag champs. Look how small those dudes are.
Tajiri looks old. That's who's that? That's Johnny Gargano, and I don't remember the other guy's name. Johnny Gargano's really good though. But yeah, no, Tajiri looks super old, and that is a flashback for sure, dude. Wow, I can't believe how bad he looks right now.
All right, cuz. So Monday night happened. Got a chance to enjoy Monday Night Football. It was very competitive and enjoyable for the first half. 21-21 going into halftime, and then basically nothing else for the Detroit Lions.
Zach Zenner was running wild on people in the first. Looked great. Matt Stafford was taking command of that offense, sitting there like, you know what? You can't score. Don't worry. I'll bulldoze this in, getting points on the board. Yeah, dude. They look good. They look like they could hang. Look like they can compete. But the story of the Lions is what? We can't make adjustments. Second half rolls around. You see Zach Zenner maybe one more time. And mind you, he was chewing up earth and just rumbling in for touchdowns, plural, yes, plural, 2. And then you don't see him for the rest of the game because, as Jim Caldwell said, there were certain adjustments that were made. Yeah, like always, adjustments were made, but not by you guys. I just don't get how this coaching staff struggles coming out of halftime to make adjustments to put this team in a position where they can either take a lead, take advantage of the points that they have earned in the first half, or just build on something good. That whole first half was incredible. It was a game. You either expected Detroit to go into Dallas and get blown out, or you expected them to go in there and to basically have their back against the wall and fight like just an angry, starved animal coming out. And they did the latter. They came out that first half and they were just there was no response by Dallas. None. Not until 2 minutes left in the first half. And at that point, Des Bryant gets away with a little bit of a face mask. It's called pass interference on Bedemosi, who just looks out of place and awful. He can't play at this level. He put him on special teams, that's fine, but he can't play corner at this level. He just doesn't either have the speed, the vision, or the just overall skill level to be able to go up against elite receivers like a guy like Des Bryant. And after that touchdown, momentum shifted. It just, Dallas at that point knew, hey, it's our game. We can do this. And they showed it in that second half.
Were you pissed off at all with the refs? I mean, a lot of people were debating back and forth earlier in the week as to who to blame for that game. Listen, it's one of those things where Dallas just outperformed you. They were much more efficient in a lot of areas of the game. They were able to run trick plays. I mean, that Des Bryant touchdown was awesome to see. And they just were a better football team. But it didn't help the Lions' cause that the refs really, again, were calling the game in a way that appeared to be one-sided. And so it's one of those things where when you're talking about the refs, that means they didn't do a good enough job. And it's one of those things where you go, okay, you're going on the road. You should expect that the calls are probably not going to go your way. But again, it's just frustrating in that you kind of felt like in the first half, you were competing with that team. You were going back and forth. You walked away from halftime tied with them. But what happened was, in order to keep up, they just had to abandon the running game because, the Dallas offense just kind of steamrolled the Lions and they just forced the Lions into being one-dimensional. That's just the way it was. The biggest mistake that Stafford made was that interception. It was a momentum killer. You can't have it. It was a bad throw. And again, nationally, you got a chance to see what kind of everyone in Detroit sees, that Stafford is talented. It's a guy that we all can support, but in the biggest of big games, your margin of error has to be less than nothing against a team like the Dallas Cowboys that are coming at you with great offensive line, great receivers, a quarterback that's making the throws. You cannot have mistakes, and Stafford made the biggest one. Whether you say, well, he was hurried, whether you say he tried to zing it in there, whatever the cause was, you had a turnover, and it resulted in points for Dallas. So for me, I wasn't as frustrated watching it. When he threw the interception, I just was like, you can't be the gunslinger, and you can't, in the past, have a situation where he would run the ball. He had a lane there to get some yards positively to run the ball or just throw it away. It's one of those situations where you cannot turn the ball over or throw an interception. Those are momentum killers. And now, because of that loss, the scenario is set. The Lions are going to play at home Sunday Night Football. It was flexed. 8:30 kickoff. It's going to be in Detroit in front of Ford Field. And if Washington defeats the New York Giants prior to the start of the Lions game, then that game is winner take all. Loser goes home. And it's one of those things, unless there is an opportunity for a tie that could cause some rumblings too. But it's not likely there's going to be a tie. So it's going to be for all the marbles. And the first thing I say is, and I tweeted it out on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. You know what I tweeted out? I said, listen, I'm not going to count on the Lions to get the job done. I'm just going to root for Washington to lose to start the day. New Year's Day, January 1st, my first mission will be put on my New York Giants gear. I don't have any, but you know what I mean? Figuratively, I'm going to put on my Giants gear, support them, and be like, hey, Giants, just do us a solid. Defeat the Washington Redskins. Make it so that the game is just for which team can have the home game.
See, I want Washington to win.
You do? You want it to be all?
I do. One for Kirk Cousins. You know, whether he's a Spartan or not, I really like Kirk Cousins. I think he does a lot of good things in the quarterback position. I think he's a good guy. I like the way he plays on the field. So for Kirk Cousins, I want Washington to win. I also want this Detroit-Green Bay game. I want it to be for all the marbles. I want Detroit to have to win this game. I don't want them to back into the playoffs because you're letting them off the hook then. If you just allow them to sit there and go 0-3, when all you have to do is win one game, you have to win one of your final 3 games. At a certain point in this season, you had a 2-game lead on the Packers. You had the inside track to controlling your own destiny, and the NFC North and the NFC overall taking the second place in all of it, being right behind Dallas. And still you couldn't finish the deal. You couldn't get one win out of one of those 3 games. Yeah, I know those were the toughest 3 games on your schedule. Good teams would win at least one of 3, and you're letting them off the hook. On top of that, if Detroit is somehow able to win this game, Green Bay's out of the playoffs. I want Green Bay out. And I don't want the Lions to back into the playoffs, and then you can turn around and say, hey, Jim Caldwell kept the Lions got the Lions into 2 of 3 playoff years that he's been the coach. So that's a good thing. That's something that we haven't been able to see in a long time from a head coach for the Lions. No. Jim Caldwell is just as much to fault and to blame for the Lions being where they're at as anybody, the good and the bad. He's made awful calls this year that have cost them games. He's done things that make you scratch your head and say, wow, a good coach wouldn't have done that. He's not a good coach. He really isn't. He's got very average to adequate players, and he's a very average head coach. So you know what you get? You get very average results. And I don't want to sit there and I don't want to reward average. You know, you get a good coach. He's going to make average players better. You get a great head coach. He's going to make those average players even better. He's going to give you Pro Bowl caliber talent. All right? This team doesn't have the talent base yet. I think Bob Quinn's building in that direction. This team doesn't have the talent base yet to sit there and get over the mistakes that Jim Caldwell makes. So if they lose and they don't make it into the playoffs, I think Bob Quinn has a slight window where he can come in and say, hey, you know what? You blew it. You crapped the bed. You had to go 33% in the final 3 games, and you couldn't do that. You couldn't win one game. You couldn't even tie a game. So you're out of here because I can't handle your coaching mistakes and you not being able to get this talent up to par. And I just don't want this Lions team to sit there and have the escape route. I don't want them to be able to sit there and get into the playoffs and not earn it. You got to earn your keep. And that's what I want from the Lions.
Man, that's why I love doing the podcast with you. I completely disagree with everything you just said. Listen, the Lions need this victory. They need an opportunity to get to the postseason because they're building a program here. They need any avenue that they can get. If you count on the Lions, a lot of times you got to go, well, there's going to be an avenue for them to fail, fall flat on their face. And I would say, listen, Green Bay has an opportunity. They've played well. All I'm looking at is what avenue do the Lions have to get into the postseason. And they could, if they open up on the road, maybe have an advantage in that, you know, when you play at home, you got the fans there. You got to perform. You might have more pressure on you because if the Lions have a home game and they don't perform and they come out and they don't play well, the fans are going to be upset. You're going to hear groans. You're going to hear things maybe that you don't want to hear. I would say that maybe for this squad, playing on the road might be advantageous where you can just focus in on what you got to do because what's been happening each and every game? Very tight games, very close games. And I would say that if it's at home this year, I'm not exactly confident that they're going to come through and exactly do what they need to do because of maybe some heightened pressure. So if there's any avenue for the Lions to get into the postseason before the game starts, I might even say that there's an advantage that they can come out super loose. They know they're in the playoffs, and that would also provide them an opportunity to earn that victory versus Green Bay, to come out not so tight, to realize, hey, whatever happens, we're in the postseason. We've earned our keep. We've gotten a spot to play following the regular season, and they might just come out and play a lot more relaxed and earn that home game. Because if they do win, then they get to host, they get to be the division winner, they get to host a playoff game in Detroit, and it hasn't happened in decades. So it's nice to see if there is an opportunity, Washington go out there, lose, and let the Lions be in the postseason, and that might just, in essence, turn around and allow them to really become the division winners.
How good do you feel if the Lions have to go either into Atlanta, who has put up a ton of points this year with that offense, or go into Seattle, which is one of the most difficult places to play, and to play against a defense that's a little bit banged up, a little bit injured, but still a very difficult place to play, a defense that's very good, and you've got an offense that has shown glimpses of kind of altering itself on the fly with Russell Wilson and Doug Baldwin and the running backs that they have there. I don't feel good. I don't feel confident that they can go in and beat up an Atlanta team, beat up a Seattle team on the road. There's no way. If this team's going to do anything at all, they've got to win the division, and you've got to sit there and hope that you can take on the Giants and you can beat the Giants at home.
When you say the word confidence in the Lions, my answer is zero. I don't have confidence. Listen, all I know is I'm a realist. You're a realist. Vito's a realist who finally decided to show up here in the studio.
Hey, he's big time.
Yeah, big time.
His limo driver didn't get to the free press until, I don't know, about 20 minutes ago. So it'll take some time.
But listen, I don't care what anybody says. Hey, if we're bandwagon guys, if we're people that are not ride or die with the Lions, we're realistic. We're fully expecting the Lions to lose, and we want to know every way possible. Most people on our Twitter page were the same way. They weren't asking, like, what are the avenues for the Lions to, win their way into the postseason? All you had to do was win versus Dallas. What they were asking, what they were tweeting was, what is the scenario that the Lions can get to the postseason if they go lose-lose? That's what they were asking, and that's what I was looking at, and I was 100% behind them because I want to know if the Lions lose out, which is very likely, how do they get themselves into the postseason? And they get to the postseason with a Washington loss.
So if the Lions lose out, all right, they'll end up going to play either Atlanta or Seattle on the road, and I just see them just getting mauled. I don't even see them putting up much of a fight against those two teams because those two teams are very good. Do you end up firing Jim Caldwell then? Because I think that's where a lot of this impetus comes from with fans who don't want them to make the playoffs and fans who sit there and basically want them to fall flat on their face and fail because they don't like the job Jim Caldwell's done. I don't like the job Jim Caldwell's done. At the same point, I want this team to do well. I want them to succeed, but I don't want them to back into the playoffs. I want them to earn it. So do you fire Jim Caldwell if you basically go 0-4 down this last stretch of 4 games?
Ooh, do we fire Jim Caldwell? Listen, it's one of those things where there are people that are rooting for the Lions potentially to lose because if the Lions do make the postseason, then there's an opportunity for Caldwell to get maybe a 3-4 year extension, maybe at least 2 at minimum. And if they lose, then maybe Bob Quinn will have the opportunity to get his guy in here and move this along. That question with Jim Caldwell is a fascinating one because it ties into a lot of things with the Lions in that he's done an okay job, above average. He's an above-average coach with the Lions, but there's 2 ways of looking at it.
One of the highest winning percentages of a Lions head coach all time.
Here's the way you look at it. If you want mediocrity, if you want, an opportunity, or you look at it and you go, listen, Jim Caldwell can get you a couple good seasons here and there, but maybe not get you over the hump. Then you go, okay, keep him, because we've had coaches that have been terrible. We've had coaches that haven't been able to get you to the postseason. But that's not the question I'm asking. I'm going, we got a new general manager. We got a franchise quarterback. We're building a young offensive line. I want to know, where is the coach or where's the guy that's going to get me to the Super Bowl? And when I look at with that prism, with that, focus on my brain, I don't see Jim Caldwell as being the leader of that bunch. And like we said when he was first here, he's a stopgap, gatekeeper kind of guy. Get him over the hump, get them to the point where they feel like they're competitive. Boom, blow them out, get someone else to stamp the deal and take them over to the hump to get them to the postseason. So I would say that, but there's some fans that are happy with him. Hey, this guy's great. This guy is, a leader of men. This guy doesn't let these guys, go off on, weed binges like with Vito over here. They're not going out to party and going to Florida and having a good old time. They're in the film room. But I go like this. I go in a game versus Dallas where you're getting your asses handed to you and it means nothing that your quarterback's in there. You leave him in there and he's taking hits and he could have got further injured. That's what I look at and get pissed off at. And I go, why on earth is Jim Caldwell keeping Stafford out on the field to get creamed? Why? Those are the little things that piss me off and make me go, I don't want this guy to be the coach.
This is a head coach that needs another guy up in the booth, a guy like Randy Edsall, who just got hired by UConn. All right? You just lost basically your brain trust because Jim Caldwell has so many troubles and so many difficulties on the field, whether it's trying to navigate how to throw a red flag, whether it's calling a timeout. I mean, for Pete's sake, the guy wears 2 watches, and you still can't tell time. There's a big issue there. That's why you have a guy like Randy Edsall up in the booth sitting there deciphering information and saying, hey, Jim, we've got about a 12% chance that if you throw that red flag right now, we'll win this. Or saying, hey, Jim, we've got about a 75% chance that if you throw that red flag right now, we're going to win this. You know what Jim Caldwell does? He throws the red flag on 12% of the time instead of 75% of the time. It makes absolutely zero sense. He struggles so often with doing things on Sunday. Monday through Saturday, he's a great guy. He's a great head coach. The players believe in him. Everybody likes him. When Sunday rolls around, he, for some reason, whether the moment's too big, whether he is incapable of being able to sit there and handle what is placed before him, or whether he just doesn't understand the rules, Jim Caldwell seems to botch it and screw it up on Sundays. And that's my issue. And if you go 0-4 in your last 4 games as the Detroit Lions, because you're lucky enough to make the playoffs because Washington allows you to back in, you have to fire this guy. You have to. Vito, welcome to the show. You're going to let John talk all this smack about you? You need to have a rebuttal. Look, I know you don't sit there and roll up spliffs and spark those. You did take a limo here, though. You did. I see.
Well, it wasn't the best limo, and my driver wasn't the best, and it's all on him for why I'm late. I always have to blame somebody else.
He'll be fired. Don't worry.
Good.
Yeah,
good.
We'll get that crack staff to take care of that for you.
Well, you have to have a fall guy, right? Didn't Chris Carter teach us that?
Always.
He taught us that. So if you take anything from the Hall of Famer, you got to have a fall guy. So my limo driver's a fall guy, not me. But the Lions, I think the fall guy will be at the end of this season will be Caldwell. I think it has to be, guys, if they don't make the playoffs. And I think it's because of Bob Quinn, too, the new regime. He wants his own man. He's of the Patriots way. He's not of the Jim Caldwell way, which I don't even know what way he is of. I mean, like you said, he needs all this help. And I believe that the coordinators have made Caldwell look adequate this year. Jim Bob Cooter, what he's done.
I think you just nailed it right on the head.
Don't you think so?
I absolutely do. You've got a guy like Jim Bob Cooter who has taken Matt Stafford and basically reinvigorated his career, made him look like he was a Pro Bowl player. I mean, do you realize a couple weeks ago we were talking about how people were upset that he wasn't included in the MVP discussion? And this was a quarterback who forever, ever wanted to be ran out of here because he made too many interceptions, made too many bad plays. You've got a defense that is missing its big dogs. You basically didn't have DeAndre Levy for almost, 90% of this season? You sat there, you had Ziggy Ansah dealing with a hampered ankle for much of the year, missed a lot of games. You had a guy like Darius Slay who sat there and is now dealing with some injuries, and he's missed multiple games as well. And he was able to take this defense and sit there and minimize teams and sit there and hold them to under 20 points to give this team a chance to win games. And in the end, it was Matt Stafford who was sitting there dragging the carcass of this Lions team across the finish line, getting them W's. And this was all done, like you said, I believe, in spite of Jim Caldwell.
So, Vito, how confident are you this Sunday? What will you be doing to watch the game? And a lot of people, and before you came, Adam and I were debating, we were talking, I want Washington to help the Lions out, just lose so that when we watch the game, there's no pressure and they can just back their way in. Adam's like, listen, I want Washington to go out there, win it, make it so that the pressure is heightened, that there is no avenue for the Lions to escape. They got to win. What say you? What do you think? I'm of the opinion, listen, if you get to the postseason any way possible, then you have a chance to fulfill all the goals. And if it means Washington losing and you back in, I'm taking it.
The Lions have to win the division, I think, to have a chance to win a playoff game. They're not going to win a playoff game unless they're at home. That's my stance on that matter.
I love you, Vito.
Well, thank you. I love you too, Adam. And the other thing I wanted to say is that don't you want to beat Green Bay to get in? How great would that look for the franchise, which has done relatively nothing in the last how many years now? One playoff win since, 1957? It's been a long, long drought of of winning playoff games. I mean, and it's been way too long. And the team is at a point where it's got to put up or shut up, right? I think it really has to at this point. And backing into the playoffs is not going to do anything, I think, for the fans. It's not going to look good for the franchise either. And for Stafford, maybe his legacy, if you care about that and building upon what he's done, what he can do going forward.
So what looks great
it's not going to look good.
Aaron Rodgers rolling in here with his offense, dropping 49 points on us and embarrassing us on the national stage. And all the talk will be, here we go again, collapse. Here we go again. Matthew Stafford might be the highest paid guy with no results.
If you don't win the game, all that stuff's going to be talked about anyways. You're going to have to hear it all next week when they're sitting there getting ready for their playoff game against the Seattle or an Atlanta team who's just about to take you to prison cell B and sit there and have jail sex with you. I mean, do you really want that? I don't.
The game I saw last year versus Seattle, we were in it and we got screwed. So for Seattle,
things change, bro. You don't have a wide receiver named Megatron this year.
But I like the fact that if you talk about a matchup that I would like to have, I'd like the Lions to go out there and play Seattle on the road. Atlanta obviously would be a devastating matchup. It'd be super hard.
Seattle's a pit, man. They don't call it the 12th man for a reason.
And you're not going to play there and win there. And it's one playoff win since 1957. That's why they just honored that team with Barry Sanders and those guys. Which franchise in any professional sports league honors a team that wins a playoff game?
Hey, you made
not wins
it.
A championship, wins a playoff game.
Exactly.
Really?
And
that's embarrassing.
They don't play well outside. So if you're going to sit there and pick a team, you probably want to play Atlanta because at least they play indoors. You know this team doesn't play well outside. It's been proven. I think they've lost every game that they've played outside this season.
And they don't win games on the road. They've won how many games on the road this year? They've won outside of one game, they've won every single game at home. So they've done very well at home. You want to be at Ford Field where Stafford can have some extra zing on the ball. Him going to a cold weather climate, especially with now the finger injury, you can't expect him to have success on the road right now. At home where they've had success, I got to believe he will have a good enough game to win a playoff game. That's why you got to win the division.
All right, Vito,
what
are you doing from now on Wednesdays around noon? I'm looking for a new co-host, somebody who has some damn sense, because this guy over here has absolutely zero.
You guys are the ones not making any sense because you guys are sitting here like, yeah, the Lions need to win their way in. Okay, that would be great, being that...
You're saying you just want to get in.
I want to get in. I just want to get in. Of course, if I could look ahead and see that the Lions would defeat Green Bay, that would be awesome. But they actually have to go out there and play 60 minutes versus Aaron Rodgers, who told everybody, listen, we're winning out. And what did he proceed to do? Gone out there and zing the ball all over the place, damn near dropping 50 fantasy points every week because he's the man.
He looked so good last week. Didn't look hurt at all.
But how about the week before Rodgers? I think it was 0-0 touchdowns thrown by Rodgers. So he's been great the last 5-6 games now. But that game against, what was that? Against Chicago?
Yeah,
he wasn't,
Chicago. He
wasn't terrific until that 60-yard bomb to Jordy Nelson to force the field goal that got the Packers that W. So the Packers didn't play great football, remember, in that game. And they were, I mean... You got to win that game against a Bears team that had Matt Barkley starting, and you saw what Barkley did. So with that being said, you got to look at what Stafford can do then. Stafford's a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback. Barkley's been a bench warmer for his whole entire career. So look at it that way, too, and you would have to believe, Barkley almost completed 70% of his passes in that Week 15 matchup against the Packers. So if he can do that, can't you expect Stafford to reach 70%? And if he does eclipse 70%, he's won every single time this year when he's eclipsed 70% for his completion percentage. So
what do you guys think?
You would hope so, but their defense looks much better than it has in the past. Green Bay's defense is almost like a transformation. Look, I know they've given up 27 points against the Bears, and I know they gave up 25 points against the Vikings, all right? But if you look at before that, it was 13, 10. So this defense for Green Bay has kind of revitalized itself as well, and they're not playing as hampered as they were earlier in the year. So that makes me a little bit concerned with what Matt Stafford can do, because when Matt Stafford tries to force the ball, you see what happens. You talked about it with that play in Dallas. When he forces the ball, it usually leads to a turnover. You can't have that against a Green Bay team.
So what are the keys? What do you guys think it's going to take for the Lions? Sunday Night Football, national TV audience. Everyone's going to want to see what's going to happen in this game that's going to decide the division. What are the keys for the Lions to come away with the victory? Obviously, you guys are kind of saying, okay, we want to win it to get in it. So what are the keys for them so that by 11:30 midnight, we're all celebrating, having a good old time to start off the new year?
I would say Darius Slay has to play, in my opinion. And then Matt Stafford completing 70% or better of his passes.
I like that. That makes a lot of sense to me. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to contain Aaron Rodgers. You can't sit there and you can't let him hit Jordy Nelson deep. You're going to have to, whether you've got to sit there and double team Jordy or you've got to do something with basically the back four in the secondary. Batamosi can't play this game. He can't. He's a liability out there. The ends, whether it be Ziggy Ansah or whoever else is playing opposite of him, are going to have to sit there and put pressure on Aaron Rodgers, force him to get happy feet, force him to hear footsteps, make him throw the ball away. Hopefully that results in an interception. On offense, Matt Stafford can't throw any interceptions or turn the ball over. And that offensive line is going to have to protect him. I think if you can get Travis Swanson back this week, that's a huge bonus because since he's been out, that offensive line has looked awful. Absolutely atrocious. Do you realize Matt Stafford got hit 9 times last week against Dallas? I mean, he had to feel like an absolute punching bag after that game. So keeping Stafford upright, allowing the plays to develop downfield so he can hit guys like Golden Tate and Marvin Jones, who's basically been invisible for, I don't know, last 6-7 weeks.
What happened to him? Had a great first half of the season, nothing really since.
So I think those are the two big things. They got to sit there, shore up the defense, especially the back four. Got to put some pressure on Rodgers, and Matt Stafford's got to be responsible.
All right, so what do you guys think is going to happen? Okay, you told me the keys. I'm sitting here going to tell you I don't believe they're going to win. That's why I want Washington to help us out, do us a favor, and let the Lions get into the postseason because when all the marbles are on the line, it's just, based upon history, tells me that it's going to be super tough for the Lions to win the game. So I see them losing. Not sure how yet, in what fashion, but I don't see them winning.
I'm going to say 31-28 Green Bay. Detroit doesn't win. Hopefully Washington wins, and Detroit's out.
I'll say Packers win as well, 31. I'll steal your point total for the Packers, 31-24 over the Lions.
Okay.
I think because of Rodgers, 14 touchdowns to 0 INTs his last 6 games. How is that trend not going to continue against the Lions, right?
Absolutely.
See, we're all preparing for devastation on New Year's Eve. Oh, my goodness. Well, it's one of those things where the Lions can, prove everybody wrong, shut everybody up, and go out there and handle their business. And I do believe that it's going to be a good game. It's just one of those things where when it comes to the end of the game, I just don't know if the Lions are going to score more than the Green Bay Packers at this point in time, especially with the injuries. Theo Riddick's injury is also very important to pay attention to. I haven't heard him practicing, but Darius Slay is going to be back, but he's not going to be 100%. But we're going to switch gears here and talk about a great story that really kind of signifies the time. And it was really interesting. My buddy Kenny kind of, tweeted out and told me about this great story where Andria Jones was tweeting and she messaged out to Ocho Cinco. And Ocho Cinco is very flamboyant, the former wide receiver in the NFL, tweets a lot, really interacts. And he was talking about Christmas, and Andria had reached out and messaged and said, hey, we're going through a tough time. And if there's an opportunity for any kind of help at all, my son is a very big, fan of playing, video games and things like that. And Chad replied, and a great story all around. And it's received not a lot of local press, but a lot of national press in terms of the fact that Chad Ochocinco sent this family an Xbox, and the CEO of EA Sports also helped this family out. And I'm very fascinated to get this story. And we have Andria Jones on the line. Andria, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, I'm very curious. Had you ever in the past tweeted out to a celebrity and had someone message back to you?
I think we've all tweeted. Nobody ever responds. So it was actually quite shocking when he did.
Now, Andria,
my phone started going crazy, and I thought, well, I wonder what's going on here. That's weird. And then I realized what had actually happened. It took like 20 minutes for me to realize even what had happened.
Now, Andria, walk us through what took place on, I believe it was December 10th when you had the original conversation with Chad Johnson. So kind of walk us through how this all kind of happened and how it came to be and how you were able to get a Xbox One from Chad Johnson.
So he had sent a tweet out that when kids get older, they only want a couple gifts and they're expensive. And I just replied back just blankly, thinking nothing would ever come of it. And I said, my son is 14 and that's all he wants is an Xbox One, but it's way out of our budget. And I went back doing my business, and then all of a sudden I come back to my phone and hundreds of messages coming through that, people were just making comments back and forth that they wanted one. And so I finally got to the message of him saying, your son wants an Xbox One, he's going to get one. And he told me to send him my information, and he ended up following me back, and I messaged him, and he said, don't worry, I promise, your son's going to have that Xbox One. Were
you like questioning it at all? Did you really believe he would actually follow through and send your son an Xbox?
He's a big talker. I'm sure you guys have seen the tweets that he sends. He likes to challenge people all the time to play FIFA against him, and he claims he's the best at it. And so in my heart, I thought there's no way he would say this and not truly do it, because I've seen him interact with his fans, otherwise in different things, taking them out to the movies, taking them out to dinner and stuff. So I really did believe that it was going to happen. I didn't know when it was going to happen, but I wanted to believe that it was definitely going to happen.
So now, after you and Chad message back and forth, what ends up happening? Does he show up and deliver it himself? Does it come FedEx, UPS? Does it just show up on your door? How does that go? How does that happen?
So what ended up happening is the head guy at Xbox, he sent me a message as well. The head guy for the Xbox games, he sent me a message and he just said, hey, we want to send some stuff too. Just give me your address and we'll send it out this week. And this was about 5 days before Christmas that the messages, us going back and forth really began to happen. And on Christmas, December 23rd, he sent me the Aaron Greenberg, who is from Xbox. He sent me a message. He said, hey, we're FedExing the Xbox and any games that, we have, we're going to FedEx it overnight to you. You'll get it tomorrow. Between him and Chad, they had decided, they sent it together. Mm-hmm. And then we also ended up receiving a package from Ty Stover, who is with EA Sports. He sent 6 games over and just sent a message. Hey, Chad said you could use some help this holiday. I hope your son Julius enjoys the game. So on the same day, we got, a pack of 6 games and a big box. The Xbox was in it and 2 other games and a nice little card and just a picture of all the people from Xbox and stuff. So it was really exciting.
Yeah, and then the other caveat to the story that made it great was Chad Johnson lived up to the hype. He played your son in FIFA, a game that he loves to play, and I hear he put a hurting on your son.
Well, he actually he made it like they played, but they have not played yet. He said that he is going to beat my son 85-0, which 85 is obviously his number, so I think he was just putting a play on his number. But I definitely plan to get them together to play. I don't know how in the world I'm going to make it to Florida, but I'm going. And that'll be the next thing that everybody can see is them playing live.
So since Christmas, and that just recently passed, have you had any more conversations with Chad? Have you guys had any more discussions about possibly setting something up like that so your son can play Chad?
We haven't, but he still follows me, so I can direct message him, and I do plan to. If we can get down there, by summer, I definitely plan to send him a message and just say, hey, Julius wants to thank you in person and see if you guys can battle it out on FIFA.
So how excited was Julius when the package arrived, all those games? And these are not just the, regular games that are on discount in the discount bin. These are the top-end games that everyone's playing. Your son, Julius, must be super thrilled with what happened with this story.
He's extremely thrilled. He's very grateful. He keeps walking by going, I can't believe this really happened. And he's excited to get back to school now so he can tell all his friends about it.
Yeah, now Bleacher Report, national media have written about it. How do you kind of conceptualize it being a Michigander, realizing that national outlets and, Twitter, social media is all talking about this story and involving you, your family, and your son?
It's pretty amazing. It's different. It's not something I ever expected to truly happen, but it was exciting. It's all kind of slowed down, and I'm okay with that. I'm grateful and thankful for the opportunity, and especially grateful that Chad Johnson reached out when he did. I feel like I was literally in the right tweet at the right time.
Yeah, Andria Jones is with us. She received an Xbox from Chad Ochocinco. A great story. Now, I caught wind of this story from my buddy Kenny. How do you know Kenny? We share a mutual friend.
Yeah, I worked with him many years ago, and we kind of lost contact, and we picked back up again the last 2 years, and he's just a great guy. I love him.
Yeah, absolutely. I've known him for such a long time, and that's how I got wind of the story. He, messaged.
Yeah.
He reached out and messaged, and I caught on to it. And it's a great story. You can find it on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. Definitely, it's one of those things where around the time of the holidays, you want to pay it forward. You want to do things for others, and there's no better feeling than to share something with people that are less fortunate and don't have the opportunity to maybe get some things to help their kids out. And Andria is now the beneficiary of it. It's a great story and one that I found very interesting. And it's just lets you know, hey, reach out, see what happens. And maybe someone out there can give you a lending hand. It's a great story.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrea. You have a good one, and make sure your son brushes up on his FIFA skills, all right?
I sure will. Thank you so much.
All right, take it easy.
See, what an interesting story.
Great story.
But you know what? With a great story always comes the hate. You know what stinks is that there were people under the thread when she messaged that had said, then your son doesn't deserve an Xbox if you can't afford it. And then you had people requesting some outlandish things. You had a lot of haters that were talking like, if you're so, if you don't have the funds right now, why are you spending time tweeting? Go make the funds and things like that. So It was not there were some not nice people, but at the same time, you realize that Chad decided, hey, this person reached out, I'm going to help out. You can't be a hater. You can't be someone like that and just hate on somebody who is, helping out somebody and trying to do nice things.
Chad Johnson, for everything that you can say about him, he is an incredible guy. He's great. And he does phenomenal things like this all the time. It's a shame that people sit there and they basically say what they say, they do what they do. But for every good thing that occurs, there's always a lot of bad, and bad people they suck.
Why do people feel the need to critique everything, too? Why do they go on Twitter? They feel empowered by being behind their mobile devices or laptops, tablets, whatever it may be. And they get on Twitter and they criticize these people for getting these nice gifts. It's a nice gesture from a former NFL player. Why does it matter to them that they're getting this Xbox, right? It's not something involving them, their family, loved ones. So why involve yourself in this matter? You have bigger fish to fry, probably. Maybe even worse stuff going on in your family, in your life. Worry about that. Don't worry about what is happening to this other person, which is a nice gesture, a nice Christmas gift, come earlier, whatever, however you want to describe it. But still, a nice gesture that doesn't need all the critiquing, criticizing to sum it up.
It's because people can hide behind their laptop, like you said. You can sit in your basement and you can say whatever you want, and you don't have to feel the retributions of it. But great story. Andria was awesome enough to come on and share it with the podcast. Chad Johnson was awesome enough to sit there and follow through on what he said. We're going to step out for a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk some Michigan, Florida State in the Orange Bowl. That's taking place on Friday. We're going to have Brandon Justice on from the Justice Report. You can check that out right here on the Detroit Sports Podcast. So we'll be back in a moment. Stick around. We'll have Brandon Justice back on with us. Doc and Jock here for Fanatic U. If you're looking for some sweet sports swag and you love your Detroit teams, and I mean you really love your Detroit teams, you got to check out fanaticu.com and get the coolest gear out there and rock your Red Wing shirt, rock your Lions shirt, rock your Piston apparel. Wear it till the wheels fall off. Michigan State, you know what? They got it too. Check out Fanatic U. They have 6 locations all over Metro Detroit. Check them out, fanaticu.com.
Yeah, we coming now. Come on. Yeah. That's right. We put it down. It's like a family in here, just a little disabled. Putting it down, we lay them out on the table. Yeah. Who's in the house? The brothers in the house. Gotta turn it on out, let you know what we about. Kinda like Cain and Abel, a bit unstable. Don't be breaking the brain, break the whole damn table.
All right, as we step back from that break, on the phone with us right now is Brandon Justice of the Justice Report. Brando, what's up, bud? How you doing?
Good, man. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm great. Sitting here, I'm on the phone with you. We're talking Orange Bowl. I'm so pumped up for Michigan, Florida State right now. I can't wait for Friday at night to come around. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely two high-profile programs going at it. I mean, it's kind of cool to see Michigan kind of, I know that New Year's Six Bowls certainly aren't as popular nor as important, I guess, as they used to be before the college football playoff came around. There's no doubting that being in the Orange Bowl, being in this kind of game, of course, New Year's Six Bowls aren't even played on New Year's this year, but regardless, to see Michigan in this kind of atmosphere, this kind of attention on the national level, obviously the fans are excited about it. Us reporters excited about it because just more traffic and all of that as well. But it's definitely a national stage for them and a good opportunity for them to showcase, how close they truly were to that playoff status.
All right, Brandon, going into this game, what storyline should Michigan fans be excited about as they sit there and they get ready to take on Florida State in the Orange Bowl?
Well, first and foremost, I think that Michigan's number one spectacular. I mean, the number one thing to look forward to, it definitely has to be the matchups that you get on the offensive side of the ball, because Florida State's secondary is weak. It's wounded. It started the season off weak. It got weaker with injuries. Derwin James, can't remember the first name, but he's their best defensive back, their safety. He's out for the game. He won't be playing. I know he hasn't been in this season much at all, but regardless, that's going to be another lost guy for the Seminoles. And removed from that, now Spate is now 100% healthy. Obviously, in that Ohio State game he wasn't. That's kind of why that deep ball was never really dialed up. But if you guys can remember, before that injury, his deep ball was one of the prettier ones you were going to see in the conference, one of the prettier ones you were going to see in the country, honestly, connecting with Amar Darboh on multiple occasions this season. So with that, I mean, I think that Michigan fans should be excited about the opportunity that Wilton Spate has to kind of showcase what he's going to do heading into next season, what he can do when he's 100% healthy, and what he can do against really good competition in Florida State. I mean, obviously, it's not a great secondary, and I don't think that, it's going to really be one of those things where everyone's okay, Wilton Spate's legit after this kind of game. But, from an outside perspective, when you see a guy like Wilton Spate have the game that I think he's going to have against a team like Florida State, then I think he'll definitely get noticed.
Sticking with the defense, Florida State's defense is pretty sack happy. I believe they lead the nation with something close to 4 sacks per game. Is the Michigan O-line going to be able to stand up to that pressure and keep Wilton Spate clean so he can hit that deep ball?
Yeah, that's where things get tricky, and that's what a lot of Michigan fans are kind of worried about based off of what I've seen. And from a reporter standpoint, from one of the stories that I've been mostly focusing on recruiting lately because it's so hot of a season right now. But regardless, from what I've gathered, looking at this matchup, yeah, it's definitely going to be a game that relies not only on Michigan's offensive line, but also on its defensive line. I think it's really one of those games that's up to both lines. It's kind of like that Ohio State game but it's kind of the opposite. In the Ohio State game, you had two offensive lines that weren't that great, and Michigan's defensive line, I think, had trumped over Ohio State's going in. But regardless, it was a game of two offensive lines. This one's kind of different. You're getting two offensive lines that they're okay, but it's that defensive line of both teams that are elite. I mean, these are two of the three best defensive lines in the country, along with Alabama. Obviously, Jonathan Allen on that team. And then with Florida State, you're seeing, like you said, a sack-happy team. And Michigan, a team that hasn't given up too many sacks. They're more of a team that's struggled in the run game. They really haven't done too much for the run protection, creating many holes, especially on the left side. Kyle Kalis has struggled in the guard position late in the season, kind of like he did last year, too. So it'll be interesting to see. Do I think that they can handle Florida State's defensive line? Yeah, I think so, because I think the ACC's offensive lines just really haven't been up to par. And as you guys know, the Big Ten is known for its offensive lines and how good it is, how good just the conference is in the trenches. And I think that's what you're going to see in this game. I mean, obviously, I think Florida State's definitely going to get a couple of sacks. I don't know if they're going to live up to that average that they've had this year. But again, I think this is a game that not only relies on Wilton Spate's play against the secondary, but also which defensive line is going to stand up more. Taco Charlton, a guy who probably is going to be a first-round draft pick that has a spin move better than probably anybody, probably up there with Myles Garrett, close to him. And then on the Florida State side, like you said, the sack-happy team that's penetrating. They don't really play anything but aggressive on a defensive line. So it's going to be interesting to see. It should be a low-scoring battle. a classic bowl game, a classic Orange Bowl game. He's kind of looked back to 1999 when Tom Brady led Michigan to a victory against Alabama in the Orange Bowl. One of those kind of games.
Now, Brandon, a lot of talk has been a little bit about who's coming back next season. Obviously, Jabril Peppers hasn't yet declared for the NFL draft. He's kind of left it open, potentially for him to return. Do you believe that there's any chance at all that he comes back next year and plays for Michigan instead of going to the NFL?
Right. Well, the players that we figured were going to come back came back. Now, before the season, there was a lot of doubt if Mason Cole was going to come back. Of course, he was a left tackle originally, now moved to center. And then there was obviously the talk about after the season, Maurice Hurst had such a good season, same with Philadelphia. All three came back as they should. With Jabril Peppers, it's a little bit of a tricky situation. Really thought that he was just going to come out, get it over with, and say, hey, I'm going to go. I'm going to go to the draft and just get it over with, basically. So there weren't any distractions. Now, I really don't think that there's any distractions. I think, the team and who needs to know knows. And I think that's where things are at. If he hasn't decided yet, then that's just because he's not thinking about it. He's one of those kids who is, what's ahead is ahead. He doesn't look to the side. He's tunnel vision. He looks at what's in front of him and he goes after it. So what's in front of him right now is the Orange Bowl, and that's tomorrow. Now, it's very likely he can announce A, at the press conference after, or B, the next day at the first media availability after the Orange Bowl when he gets back to Michigan. But is there a chance? Yeah, I think he's definitely one of those kids that values his degree, values wanting to beat Ohio State, wanting to win a national title, and he knows that he's a guy that his presence on the team elevates that potential. This team is going to be young next year, especially on the defensive side of the ball, but having the Peppers and Jabril Peppers out there really elevates them to a whole nother level, not only talent-wise, but just leadership-wise, having him out there. He knows that. He loves Michigan. You can just see that in his interviews and what you read, but actually seeing him in person, going face-to-face with him as much as I have over the past year, over especially this season, you can see how much the kid loves Michigan, loves Ann Arbor. But he's from a tough area, from West Orange, New Jersey, one of the tougher areas in that state, one of the tougher areas on the East Coast in general. And his mom is still there. There's things that need to be done in his life, and that includes getting his mom out of there and getting his family out of there, and his friends out of there as well. And I think that's something that he's always wanted. He always preaches about losing his brother. His brother was shot, of course, a few years ago. So there's a lot of reasons why he should stay and a lot of reasons why he shouldn't. Do I think he's going to say no? I still think he's going to go to the NFL, but it's a lot closer than I thought it was going to be originally, especially before the season.
Now, Brandon, we spoke a little bit about Florida State's defense. Now, is there anybody on Florida State's offense that we should pay attention to that could be a key playmaker that will give Michigan's defense some fits or trouble?
Yeah, absolutely. Dalvin Cook, he's probably top 2, 3, maybe even the best running back in the country. Leonard Fournette didn't see much time this year, so we really didn't get to see how good, he was going to be. So as far as full-time guys, probably the best one, especially with Christian McCaffrey having a slow year too. So Dalvin Cook, probably the best running back in the country. He's one of those guys, your prototypical NFL running back. He runs downhill, he can hit the outside, he's got the top end speed as well as the stiff arm. He's got what it takes. He's got a good offensive line. I wouldn't say a good offensive line. It's a pretty decent offensive line in front of him, but that just showcases how good he is, and that just proves how good he is. He's made the most of it against some ACC defenses like Boston College and Clemson that are really mean up front. He's done pretty well against them as well. So we'll see what he does against Michigan. Now, Michigan hasn't allowed many teams run off the middle. You saw Mike Weber do pretty much nothing against Michigan, essentially. It took him until, I think, overtime, fourth quarter maybe, when he got more than 5 yards in a run, more than maybe 5-10 yards in a run. So they've shut down the running back. Saquon Barkley had only 59 yards. All of his yards, the rest of Saquon Barkley's yards, because he did have 126 from scrimmage. Other than the 59 that he had, they were all from just dump-off passes and screens late in the game when Michigan was up by 30. So they've shut down the running backs that they've gone up against that are good. There have been a couple wrinkles, like Iowa's running back had a good game, but Michigan's capable of shutting down, I wouldn't say shutting down Dalvin Cook, but at least containing him enough and not make him as much of an X factor as they want. But if there's somebody on that offense that can be an X factor, it's 100% Dalvin Cook. The quarterback, Francois, he's one of those kind of dual threat JT Barrett wannabe kind of guys, kind of like a poor man's JT Barrett. You saw what they did against Ohio State for 3.5 quarters, completely shut them down. You're getting kind of, like I said, you're getting kind of a poor man's version of that same offense with these two guys. Dalvin Cook, I think, is better than Mike Weber, but with Francois, he's not your JT Barrett. So, I think Michigan's definitely capable of shutting this offense down, or at least slowing it down to the point where it gives the offense enough time. Plus, the offense gets to come back to some warm weather, something it hasn't seen since about week 6.
Brandon Justice of the Justice Report on the line with us. Follow his great work. And I mean, if you're interested in Michigan recruiting and you don't follow Land of Justice, oh my goodness, you're missing out. Lots of great information. You can check out Brandon's work on the Detroit Sports Podcast and landof10.com/Michigan. Now, Brandon, hit us with the highlights. Michigan's recruiting class is top notch. They've landed some great recruits. All Michigan fans that are messaging us are thrilled. They're looking forward to see where Harris ends up, but hit us with the highlights. Who's Michigan gotten, and what is your take on Michigan's recruiting class for next year?
Well, Michigan had one of those crazy couple of weeks there where it was all by design. Obviously, I mean, Jim Harbaugh has something up his sleeve at all times, up his sleeves at all times. But it all started with Ambry Thomas. It was a big December. It started with Ambry Thomas, and then it turned into Tariq Black and Cesar Ruiz. Now, the past 2 weeks, going back to the last commitment, which was I believe it was last Friday or Thursday, they had a period in time where they landed 6 commitments in 8 days. I mean, you just don't see that very often. One of them included 2 in 1 day, and they missed out on one. So they nearly landed 7. They landed Jordan Anthony, a 4-star linebacker, and Drew Singleton, a 4-star linebacker. Singleton from New Jersey, went to Paramus Catholic. A school has been very kind to Michigan because it's produced names like Jabril Peppers, Rashawn Gary, Juwan Bushell-Badian, under the radar kind of offensive lineman that might see some time next year at the tackle position. He did play a little bit this year. And then with Jordan Anthony, a guy from the very well-known IMG Academy, the number 2 school in the country, number 2 high school football team in the country, originally from Maryland, transferred there. And then his teammate, Cesar Ruiz, is a guy that I really wanted to touch on, and before I go into the obvious name, Donovan Peoples-Jones. But Ruiz is a center, one of those rare guys that's a true offensive center out of high school. You'll notice a lot, and just you can use Michigan for a perfect example. Mason Cole came in as a left tackle, played left tackle the season before last year. And then this year had to switch over to center because Graham Glasgow obviously now plays for the Lions, so Michigan needed center. So they had to transition their tackle to the middle, which is usually what happens. They don't have that issue now with Ruiz. Now they're getting a true offensive center with an extremely good lower base, mechanics and hands that you see from usually like a 2 or 3 year guy in college. I really like Ruiz's game. I've always been a huge fan. Number 56 overall prospect in the country. Stand his own against almost any nose tackle or 3 tech in the country right now in high school. I mean, not obviously at college. But he's a guy that I really think will start next year. And then the other guys were Tariq Black, Deron Irving Bay, and then Donovan Peoples-Jones, obviously the big fish. Irving Bay, a guy who probably won't play until probably his 3rd year, I think, maybe 2nd or 3rd year. A lot of mechanics to work on that has the size. And then Tariq Black, a guy with extremely good ball skills at 6'4". He's your big guy target. He's extremely good in the end zone as well. He really hit the scene last year. Went to Cheshire Academy. They also have recruits from Notre Dame and Rutgers. And then finally, the big fish, he is Donovan Peoples-Jones. Everyone knows him. 5-star wide receiver from Detroit Cats Tech. You get a lot of people that say he looks like a certain NFL player. He looks like he's NFL ready. But if I had to pick one guy, it's Julio Jones. I mean, just put the two next to each other. They really look similar. He's really built, out of high school, I should say. I think he looks better than Julio Jones did out of high school. But as far as his game goes, he plays exactly like him, too. Extremely good ball skills. I mean, he high points the ball so well. How high he jumps is almost absurd. He won the Sparks Skills competition as a junior at the Nike's The Opening, a vertical that's unknown like any other from a senior in high school. I think he'll play right away. I think he'll start right away. I think he'll be, especially with Michigan losing Martin Darbo and Jay Chesson. He's one of those kids that your grandpa looks at and asks, where are they feeding these kids these days? But he's one of those kind of guys. So, Peoples-Jones, easily the biggest grab that Michigan could have dreamed of. And then obviously we're waiting on Najee Harris and then Chuck Filiaga. So,
all right, Brandon, with some of the departures from that offensive line, is there anybody that's going to be able to step in from this recruiting class and make an immediate impact? Or are there guys in the system that will just kind of fill in when there's some, I guess, departures from who's going to go to the pros?
Yeah, so you're going to lose Eric Magnuson, your right tackle, who's fantastic. I think the best offensive lineman that there was this year, one of the better ones the past couple of years for Michigan. Obviously, Graham Glasgow, he was your right guard. But I honestly think Kyle Kalis was a little bit overrated. I don't think he really performed very well against good teams. He always dominated the lesser teams, but teams like Ohio State, even the Iowa game, he really, really struggled. So, like I said before, I really think that Cesar Ruiz is a guy that's going to play right away. Because I think that Mason Cole isn't going to stick at center. I think he's going to move either to the left guard position or to the left tackle position. Now, Michigan is going to lose. I mean, the left tackle position is kind of wide open right now because Grant Newsome, as you guys know, had that gruesome injury to his knee. Hearing that he probably won't be back next year. Don't know if he'll ever be back, but if he will be, it won't be next year or probably the year after or later next year. So you're looking to see, okay, how are you going to fill that left tackle role, which was filled by Ben Braden for most of this year, who you also lose. So you're probably going to have to kick out Mason Cole to a left tackle or left guard, and then you're going to have to move Ben Bredesen, the other guard, either to left tackle or left guard. So it's pretty much up to wherever Mason Cole and Bredesen lead. Now I think they're going to fill those two roles, and then Ruiz, the freshman, moving to center, which opens one position, and that's right tackle. And at right tackle, you got to look at guys like Juwan Bushell-Beatty, who I mentioned from Paramus Catholic, a junior, pretty big guy, 6'6", big frame, lacks a lot of mechanics right now, needs his hands to get more violent, needs a better just initial touch, and he just doesn't really mirror guys very well right now. A lot of mechanics is wrong with him, but he's a huge guy and a lot to work with there. Another guy I'm hearing a lot out of is Steven Spinella. It's a guy who was really under the radar. He got picked up really late last year. He was originally a Virginia commit. Michigan picked him up, I think, 2 days before signing day. He was a low-end 3-star, something like 700 or 800 in the country. Hearing he had a really good camp, especially in the bowl camp, too. He's a guy that has the size and, the dude eats. He won a contest for eating an entire pizza in, I think, like a minute. So he's a big dude. There's no doubt about that. And then you have to look out for also John Runyon Jr. But Chuck Filiaga, they can land him out of Texas, 6'7". He's one of your more mechanically sound tackles you're going to see out of high school. I don't think he gets in the mix his freshman year, but as for freshman Ruiz, and then the rest will probably be promoted with him.
Brandon, Vito Churko here. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, wanted to ask you about Shane Morris. What have you heard is the latest regarding him transferring potentially to Central Michigan? As I hear, Central Michigan is the favorite right now to land Shane Morris.
Yeah, so with Sugar Shane, as he was known as coming out of high school, he was a fun guy to, at that time, obviously, I wasn't covering recruiting. Actually, believe it or not, guys, Shane Morris is actually older than me by a year. So, pretty funny. But yeah, with Shane Morris, he never really became what we thought he was going to. Now he always had a little bit of something that was just off about his game. He had the ridiculously good spiral. He could throw it 80 yards on a dot. But there was just something about his game that was the hiccup that just wasn't there. It had a lot to do with his too, I guess. But regardless, yeah, Shane, I've been hearing, I mean, hasn't really been investigated too much. It's kind of a given right now that Shane Morris is going to go. From all accounts, it's going to probably happen. And Alex Malzone is considering it as well. I mean, neither of the guys are ever going to play. It's pretty simple. I mean, Malzone has a couple of years left in him. And it sucks because they're both in-state guys. I mean, the brother Rice with Malzone and then Dio Sal with Shane Morris, both in-state guys who grew up Michigan, diehard Michigan fans. But sometimes it just doesn't work out. And Michigan's now recruiting national. And Brandon Peters, from what I heard, was the best player in camp, in fall camp. Before. He was the best quarterback in fall camp, but they didn't want to bring the red shirt. And they have Dylan Caffrey coming in, a 4-star out of Colorado, genes like no other with Christian McCaffrey, and he has another guy in the NFL with Max McCaffrey. So it's just looking like that these guys are running out of options, and it's probably their best interest. That's what I've been hearing. So I'm hearing that the Shane Morris thing is more than likely going to happen. I'd say it's about like 80% right now. As far as Central Michigan goes, I mean, that's a place where he knows he can go and play. Cooper Rush, I believe, graduated, so that's a place where he probably won't even have to compete. He'll probably walk in and immediately play. Now, I think any coach wants a player to compete, so I think he'll at least try to compete, but I think that, he's pretty much granted that position upon arrival. So that's what I'm hearing about Shane Morris.
Now, Brendan, you talked about Alex Malzone and his current teammate right now, former teammate at Brother Rice. Grant Perry has been suspended indefinitely. What do you think is the future for Grant Perry now at U of M?
It's complicated. It really is, because that's one of those situations where it really sucks for all parties. I mean, for whoever was affected by that. Now the details said that the actual story said that he had grabbed a girl in line at a bar, and all he did was grab the girl. Of course, that's awful. You can't do that. So that wasn't the big charge though. Now it's kind of people are kind of getting confused by that. For that, I think he just received a civil infraction or a misdemeanor, something small. Now, regardless, he's going to have to be suspended for that action as well, because you can't do that. But the big thing here is his resisting of arrest. Now, he did run from the cops during the situation as well. That's where the felony comes into play. Now, if this upholds and he does get charged with all these things and ends up having to pay the price for them, which we're not sure yet, still going through the legal process, and you can consider him as good as gone. There's no way Michigan's going to keep a felon on their team. I mean, no matter that it might not be considered a, I guess, quote-unquote legit felony, like imprisonment or anything like that. But regardless, it's going to show up on the records as a felony, and Michigan is the last school to keep a felony charge on them. Now, they're going to go through the legal process. We're going to see what's going to happen. We're going to see if anything will change, if the charges will get lowered or anything like that. And then you might see something change where he's maybe out for a season or something like that. As for the impact of him, though, if he does happen to leave, Michigan was lucky because they happened to recruit a lot of receivers in the past two classes. Cole Crawford, Eddie McDoom, Nate Johnson in the last class, and this year they have Brad Hawkins, Tariq Black, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and maybe even Nico Collins joining the class on signing day. So you're talking about 6 receivers coming in. They should be more than fine to at least replace him. But regardless, I wish both parties the best, and whatever happens.
Our guy, Brandon Justice, always delivers. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great new year, a great time covering the Army Bowl. Check out our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. Check out Brandon's work at Land of Justice, and you can see all his fine work at landof10.com. Happy New Year, Brandon. We'll talk soon.
Happy New Year.
Thanks, Brandon.
Happy New Year.
Yes, sir. Lots of detailed information from Brandon. Dude is all over recruiting. Definitely check out his work. Oh, my goodness. If I ever seen anybody hit the ground running in his career, my goodness, he loves himself some recruiting.
Wait, you just said if you've ever seen somebody hit the ground running regarding their career or future, I would imagine you got somebody here that hopefully is doing the same to maybe a lesser caliber or level right now. But I want to just make sure you notice.
Vito, that's why I love you.
While I'm here,
of course,
I got to make sure you notice.
Of course, Vito.
Honest.
I noticed right away. That's why you're here on the microphone on the special edition
Is
of
there
Doc
enough
and Jock.
oxygen in this room? Because your two heads are so big, you're sucking it all up.
All right.
Might suffocate over here.
Listen, Brandon gave us the 411 on the Orange Bowl, but I had to bring something to the table before we end this podcast.
Oh, yeah, your Paul Feinbaum.
Yes, Paul Feinbaum came on Mike and Mike earlier today, and he was talking, obviously against Michigan, saying that they don't belong at the big boy table. The fans act like they're a national powerhouse now that Harbaugh's here. So it got me to thinking, and I want to ask you guys because a lot of people will say, hey, Michigan's got 20 wins, potentially going to be 21 very soon with this Orange Bowl victory that we all probably expect is going to happen versus Florida State. So I want to ask, is Michigan overrated? Because here's the thing, all the coverage, all the news reports are talking about Michigan, yet they have not beat their rival. They have not made a college football playoff. They have not won a national title since 1997, yet they are a marquee program. And we know why they're covered like that, because Vito told me that it's a great clicking program where you just type in hashtag Michigan with a bunch of links and people will click on it. But I want to know, just from your guys' perception, being that you guys are Michigan supporters, is Paul Feinbaum right? Is it a situation where, Michigan fans are trying to prop up a Michigan football program that is not near the level of an Alabama, not near the level of an LSU at this point in time, not near the programs that have won national titles, whether it be in the BCS, whether it be in this new college football era? Michigan is getting a lot of hype, but right now when you look at the glass case full of championships, it looks pretty empty. It's about as big as the one here behind Vito's back.
It's really dusty in there.
Totally void of anything. And Michigan hasn't won anything significant with Harbaugh yet. You can say that. So I think Feinbaum is onto something because look at what U of M did last year, too, losing to its two biggest rivals and a good MSU team. This year, in your defense, Doc, and in the defense of all the MSU supporters out there, Michigan State was horrible throughout the season consistently. So Michigan beating MSU and really not looking the greatest when they did beat MSU, what does that say about U of M and Harbaugh? I don't think it said too much. And then you still haven't beaten Ohio State, haven't made a Final Four. Mark D'Antonio made a Final Four last year with MSU. D'Antonio's done more at MSU. U of M still has not achieved enough to be on the same level as Alabama and some of those SEC powers, even Clemson of the ACC, maybe even Florida State of the ACC. You could say that Florida State with Jimbo Fisher, he's won a national title there. So Harbaugh hasn't done that yet at U of M. And that's why I thought it was ludicrous that people thought he would leave U of M for a football job at the NFL level after this season. Because he hasn't done enough at U of M, I think, to warrant him moving on from U of M. Because I believe he might, give it another 2-3 years. Maybe if they win a national title, then he'll leave U of M. But they haven't done anything close to that realistically yet. So I thought those rumors were just totally ludicrous. And back to the point that Feinbaum made, I think U of M is a level below. I would say a level below because we're getting the recruits, though, guys. How about Brandon Justice, what he told us about all these recruits? I mean, big names, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Ambry Thomas, Jalen Kelly Powell, these guys from the PSL in Detroit, legitimate 4 or 5-star prospects that Alabama wanted. Like, Alabama wanted Donovan Peoples-Jones. MSU, every single national powerhouse wanted Donovan Peoples-Jones. U of M is getting those players with Harbaugh, but you still got to coach them up, right? You know, Hoke had that problem. Now, Harbaugh's won a lot more. He has so far, but he still has to do a little bit more, and I'm saying this much. He has to beat Ohio State in year number 3. There's no doubt about it for his legacy and for U of M as a program, too.
You all know I just wanted to say Michigan's overrated over and over and over again. So whenever I'm like, you know what? I like this Paul Feinbaum cat. This guy's cool. I'm going to follow his show now.
Dude, he's such a troll.
He is, though. He loves it, but he gets ratings. It's like the clickbait for Harbaugh articles, U of M articles with Harbaugh. It's all about getting the attention.
Yeah, he sits there, goes on, makes these outlandish claims, and then people just sit there and they call him, they argue him about it. He runs a national program, so he can do that because he can tap into the Michigan fan base. He can tap into the Alabama fan base, the Florida fan base. He can sit there and tap into USC country if he wants to, or Texas, whatever. So He's got the platform to do it, and he does it well. Here's the thing. I don't believe they're a national power yet. I believe they're trending in that direction, though. Like what Vito said, they haven't beat Ohio State the last 2 years. They sat there. They were able to get a win against Michigan State this year, and in the end, they really didn't look all that good doing it. They've had a lot of up and down games, and they've been beneficial in those games, but these are games that you should just be blowing opponents out, like the Iowa game. I know Kenneck's a tough place to go play, but you should have beat Iowa, and you should have beat them handily. Instead, you end up losing by a point. Now, more to the point of you saying Mark D'Antonio has done more at Michigan State. Mark D'Antonio also has a 9-year head start. It took Mark D'Antonio until his 8th season to get his program into the Final Four. Kudos to Mark D'Antonio. I've always claimed he's a great head coach. I've always believed he's a great head coach. He's done a ton at Michigan State. I mean, I have Wikipedia up right now, and 3 Big Ten championships, 2 Big Ten Legends divisions when they had, leaders and legends, which was stupid. And he's won the Big Ten East division. So he's done a ton, especially in the Big Ten. On a national scale, it's much smaller. Going and playing Alabama and being embarrassed the way that they were, that hurts a little bit. I think Jim Harbaugh has the ability to sit there and keep building his program. Next year, he has to beat Ohio State, has to beat MSU, and he's going to have to sit there and get this team into the Final Four, and you're going to have to sit there and go and do some damage against a program like in Alabama to keep yourself relevant and to be considered a national power.
What Michigan has to do is, in the big game, Harbaugh has to coach at the level that he does versus the scrubs. Listen, Ohio State is bringing in great talent year in and year out. And remember, everyone had them nowhere near the college football playoff this year, taking maybe a step back with losing what they lost to the NFL. Look where they are, and they're only going to get better, and they're still recruiting from Ohio. But in the big games, Michigan tends to have a hard time closing teams out and putting their foot on the throat. And you saw it last year versus Michigan State. You saw it this year versus Ohio State. A failure to close and a failure to execute offensively in key moments where a lot of people are looking to Michigan going, you played good in the first half versus Ohio State, and then you went ultra conservative, and the offensive numbers, if you go look at the offensive numbers, Michigan versus Ohio State in that fourth quarter, they're horrendous. They're beyond horrendous. And Michigan has to do a much better job. And you guys remember, they're losing a lot of people. You guys are going to count on all these freshmen that they're going to get in, all to come in and contribute and lead this team to a national title. They're going to contribute, but it's going to take time. So everyone's patient with Jim Harbaugh, but everyone's right. It's about that time where people are starting to say, listen, you got all the hype, now you got to deliver.
Well, think about last year, too. You know what? They didn't really have a chance to beat Ohio State. They were blown out, never had a chance in that game. This year, they should have beaten the 2 teams they lost to in Iowa and Ohio State. Horrible second half, and some of it has to be on the shoulders of Jim Harbaugh. Yep. And it seems like he always gets off the hook, never gets blamed because he's this god. He's not, okay? He can be susceptible to making mistakes. He's shown that in games and big game moments too. How about last year against MSU with the pump block formation? It was horrible, so it wasn't just on the punter there.
That was all his fault.
That was on him.
For the scheme that he played.
Right?
And I think, John, you're onto something. He does change the way he coaches later in games, especially when it's a tight game and he has a little bit of a lead. Instead of keeping his foot on the gas and trying to sit there and choke the opponent out, He tries to play a little ultra-conservative and plays not to lose instead of playing to win. And when you do that, it sends mixed messages to your players, it sends mixed messages to your team, and these guys are like, hey, we were just jamming the ball down their throat. What are we doing now? Why are we sitting there 3 yards in a cloud of dust? What's going on? That's not how we play. We open it up. We take shots downfield. We do this. We do that. And that all falls on Jim Harbaugh. He has to sit there and either, whether it be some type of a mental roadblock, or if it's just the way he likes to coach, he's got to change.
You guys are right.
He's got to evolve.
He gets way too cute, too. He really does.
Exactly.
You guys are both right. Michigan is overrated. 100%.
Not 100% overrated, I think, but too hyped up at times.
Yes.
That is true, and I think it's from the U of M fan base, even more than media
see how he likes
out
to
there.
make things black and white like that.
Oh, yeah.
It's
He likes to spin it in his favor to make himself look good and make
All
us
the
look bad.
time.
I get it. He does it to me on Tigers Talk, which you can catch once a week on Wednesdays on
Where
the
at?
Detroit Sports Podcast
That's
Network.
right.
So
That's
we
right.
know that much. And you had said that D'Antonio had like a head start. He did at MSU. And in his 8th year, you said they went to the Final Four, which was last season now, against Bama,
Correct.
getting blown out in the Final Four matchup. And so if you look at it that way, well, he took over a weaker program, though, too. He needed the head start, to get there. And so it's all right. It took longer for him.
Mm-hmm.
So if you cut it down in half for Harbaugh, that's, 4 years. So in 2 years from now, realistically, Harbaugh should have U of M in the Final Four. So, and I think next year even you could say he should be there, right?
Beginning of last season, before Michigan went on this nice run and they looked like they were going to be an unstoppable team and they were getting all this national hype and all this love, I said that Michigan would sit there and play for play in the college football playoff next year and win the national championship year 4. So that's kind of how I have it marked. I everything this year, they played better than I expected. This was all gravy. What sucked, though, was as the season rolled on, your expectations change, as they should. And when you sit there and you go and you play an Iowa team and you look soft like you looked against Iowa, you go and you play an Ohio State team that you're dominating for 3 or 4 quarters, and then you sit there and you blow it in overtime, that leaves a little bit of a bitter pill in your mouth. And what you have to do now is you have to go out, you have to beat Florida State. And you've got to say, hey, look, we won 10 games last year. We had some improvement. We won 11 this year. We're nowhere near where we want to be, and we're nowhere near where we expect we should be, but we're going to keep getting better and building and building and building. And if you look at it this way, if Michigan keeps pumping out 10, 11, 12-win seasons, as a Michigan fan, I don't think you can necessarily complain, but during one of those runs, you're going to have to win a national title, whether it's year 3, 4, 5, or 6. At some point, you're going to have to win a national title because when Jim Harbaugh came in here, that was the that was what everybody expected. It was the expectation. Hey, we're going to win a national title. And I think a lot of Michigan fans, because Michigan fans are arrogant, and a lot of them do like to pound their chest and beat their chest for no good reason. They expected to win it year 1, year 2, and it just doesn't always work that way. This year he had a great shot because he had a senior-laden team, a team with game changers. I mean, as much as we talk about what Peppers is, Peppers can change a game. I don't like the way they utilized him on offense. I thought it was kind of cutesy, and I thought it was silly, and I thought it put you behind the 8 ball a lot of times. But on defense, he is a game changer because he is an elite athlete. You also have a great secondary with a guy like Stribling and Jordan Lewis out there, and you got a solid defensive line, and you got solid linebackers. So you can do some things. This was the year that it all kind of could have came together, and it probably should have came together, but ifs and buts, candy and nuts. If my grandma had balls, she'd be my grandpa type deal. You know what I'm saying?
A lot of ifs,
Exactly.
and you can't bank on the ifs.
Exactly.
You can't always bank on it. You can't ever really bank on it. And the thing I wanted to say is that, you look at these U of M fans, and they make excuses. So and you can't be doing that anymore. I mean, they'll say, you know what, we lost on the road to Iowa. We lost on the road to Ohio State, so that's all right then. But they were games that were winnable. Down the stretch, you had a chance to win both those games, and you should have won the Ohio State game before overtime. They should have. They blew it in the second half. And then they blame it on the refs in that Ohio State game. It was on U of M. You don't want to go to overtime with Ohio State or anybody. When you go to OT, anything can happen. Any team can win. You don't go to overtime. So if that doesn't happen, well, they would have probably won. You got to win it, though. Win it My pure point is you got to win it in regulation. They should have, and you can't totally blame it on the refs. And it's time to start blaming Harbaugh a little bit, but at the same time, we can't complain as U of M fans about where they are right now because it's a 3-4 year window, 4-year deal.
It's a
That's when you
process.
expect them to win.
It's a process.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
this is the one thing. When you have a coaching regime change, you usually want to give it 4 years. You want to give the head coach enough time to get his entire class in and kind of see how they develop and what they turn into. Jim Harbaugh is doing a great job with players that Brady Hoke recruited. And most people thought that Brady Hoke had no idea what he was doing recruiting players. He knew what he was doing recruiting. He did a great job.
Well, maybe beside for
recruiting.
Shane Morris. No offense to him because I went to school with him at DLSL. So,
Did you have some questions?
huh?
Did you have questions about
About him when he came in, yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't think he was a 5-star guy. Like he was
I didn't either.
a 5-star, and then he went down to a 4-star. Then like last minute, I think, or they boosted him up to a 5-star last minute, one or the other. But still, he wasn't even good enough to be a 4-star. Honestly,
I didn't understand it either because I covered him in a couple of games for the Oakland Press.
Yeah.
and I was just like, I don't necessarily get it.
never did anything in games. Threw some
Yeah.
picks that were horrible picks too.
Exactly. So I always left me kind of scratching my head there, but whatever. Hoke didn't do a good enough job coaching players on the field.
Yep.
He sat there and tried to be their buddy too much. He did a phenomenal job recruiting, a great job. He left the cabinet fully stocked for Jim Harbaugh. So now Jim's got to sit there, put his coaching hat on as well as his recruiting hat, get his guys in here, and turn this team into what he wants it to look like. And he's got to go out and win the big game. And that's what it comes down to.
Really quick, guys, was Jabril Peppers overhyped throughout the season? Great player, can make an impact on both sides of the ball, will be a first-rounder, but in my opinion, he was because he made it to New York for the Heisman Trophy presentation. Was he really that good? That's where I think the hype machine really caught up with U of M, and it got the best of people, these people that were voting for the Heisman, and that's why he got there, in my opinion, because he got one INT all season long. The Wildcat was cute, but it wasn't really effective. I mean, one punt return for touchdown, right? That was it as well. Really? This guy is a Heisman Trophy guy? I mean, good player. I'll draft him in the first round. And I know I'm like dogging U of M now all of a sudden, right? But I'm showing my true colors. It's the truth.
You're being a realist.
That's
And-
the
You're being
honest.
objective, and the answer is
Yeah.
yes, of course.
Yes.
Of course. But he had a good year.
And a good year, but I think great, right? Has
No.
to be the difference maker. You have
For
to
a
be great.
Heisman winner, yes, you have to be great. He sat there. He's a game changer. Again, he's an elite athlete. He can do a ton of things on both sides of the ball, and he can do a ton of things on special teams. The thing is, he never did anything that was special. He didn't sit there, didn't break a 100-yard run. He didn't sit there and blow up a quarterback, force a fumble, pick it up, and run down the field 30-some yards and score a touchdown. He didn't sit there and pass for a touchdown. All he did was sit there, line up in the Wildcat, and basically halfback dive it. And it was ridiculous over and over. Never sat there, ran a route as a wide receiver to catch the ball. So it was on offense, it was always the same stale play. So he never, it was like he came in and, I'll sit there and I'll compare this to Madden. He basically came in as a guy who was ranked like an 89, right? But he had a potential of 99. He stayed at 89.
He did throughout the season. He really did.
He never evolved it. He never became anything other than what you already got. And that being said, he's a very good player. He's a very, very good player. Not a great player, though.
All right, a festive episode 177. Thank you to the fine sponsors of our podcast, Top Cat Sales, Fanatic U, all those that contribute to our project. That's how we keep this rolling. That's how we can just turn on the microphones and spit it out for 90 minutes. Thanks to our great guest, Brandon Justice, Andria Jones, today on this fine podcast. Thank you, Vito, for taking time out of your busy schedule to come here. And the special announcement that I talked about on our Twitter page, Adam is going to be on WDFN until it gets canceled tomorrow, 3 o'clock for 1 hour with Neil Rule.
Very awesome. Congrats to you.
Thank you, sir. Should be pretty good. Thanks to my manager and my pimp.
Yes.
So-
he is a great agent, isn't he?
He is. He's
But he
outstanding.
asks for a little bit too much money at
He
times,
really
too.
does.
You know, he takes all our...
You got to pay the
contract.
piper. So
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so until we get word that it's been canceled, which probably the station power will go out right before Adam goes on it because something weird happens.
I'll walk in and
Bad
somebody will
luck.
get tripped all the time.
But it's almost the new year. It's going to be good times for you. Congrats to you once again. And just
Thank you,
don't
sir.
let him take too much of your money when you start earning all these big bucks, too.
No doubt. Like I tell him, when he gets big, he's got to remember who I was. I just want to come in and watch every once in a while. That's all I need.
We can do that at least, right, Adam?
yeah,
we can
for
do
sure.
that for him. He deserves that, definitely.
That's it. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, Big Vito, Jerome Churko, I am the Doc, John McAroon, episode 177. very festive. We had a great time. Thanks to all the support. Download it on all the platforms, and we'll be back up and running full speed ahead in the new year. Like I said, we like kicking the door down. We're not taking invites. We're kicking the door down. That's what we do here at the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. See everybody next time.
Go Lions.
Happy New Year.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me.